France begins clearing out the jungle migrant camp in Calais. Somalis living in the U.S. continue the illegal practice of female genital mutilation. And there's already a Queen of Katwe. Now, could Uganda's chess revolution lift more children out of a life of poverty? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, migrants carrying suitcases and personal possessions are now leaving the soon-to-be demolished refugee camp known as the Jungle in the northern French port city of Calais. The evacuation of possibly 8,000 migrants living in squalid conditions in the makeshift refugee camp is expected to take about a week. The migrants will be offered placements in refugee centers across France and an opportunity to seek asylum. But it is concerned that some migrants will refuse to go because they still want to travel across the English Channel to Britain.
I heard that if I can go to UK and I have fingerprints in Italy, perhaps the government, British government, to return back to Italy. This is a problem here. We can face this.
Well, Britain has already begun accepting some of the estimated 1,300 unaccompanied children living in the camp. Some refugees clashed with police hours before the evacuation began to protest the demolishing of the camp. The French government says the relocation operation is humanitarian and will allow the closing of the country's largest shanty town. Well, viewers Nicolas Pignon, who has visited the camp in Calais and has been covering the issue, joins me now to tell us more about it. Nicholas, welcome.
Hi.
Now, you were there. First, one thing one might want to know is, why did this camp grow bigger and bigger in just one place?
The thing is that Calais is the main harbour, northern part of France, and that's the easiest way to go with the train or to go with the harbour, with the boat, to try to cross the channel to Britain. So it's very natural for migrants to gather at this place because that's where they have the most opportunities to manage and succeed to go through the channel. And also, geographically, it's, at the crossroad of Belgium, of France. Everybody tries to gather there. To go
so, and you were there, you saw the conditions there, but as we had one of those refugees say, he wants to go to Britain. So the issue is not so much about the French government being unable to take care of these people. The problem is that they just want to move on, right?
That's the thing. And right now, you said everything began peacefully this morning in Calais, the evacuation. But what's going to happen at the end of the week? Because you still have several thousand people who still refuse to relocate anywhere else because their dream is to cross the channel and to go in UK where they might, according to them, have more economic opportunities. So it's going to be very, very difficult at the end of this process.
And actually, that's an important point for our viewers to know. Why Britain and not France? Why do they prefer that?
The thing is that in France, you can be controlled by policemen, and they can ask you for your papers. And of course, if you don't have regular papers, you might end up in jail and maybe a deportation. Contrario, in UK, it's almost like here in the US. Police, they won't go after you and just ask for your papers in the street. You have to commit maybe a misdemeanor or do something wrong to be controlled by the police. And I think that the mindset is also very important in their decision to try and cross the channel to go to Britain.
Yes. Now, we know that the conditions are getting tougher, especially this time around in the year as winter sets in. But when you were there, you observed something very interesting about how they were coping, right?
Yeah, so it is true that it is very difficult. You have the mud, you have the wind. Nobody will like to spend more than 48 hours in this condition. Yeah. But it is also true that you have a life in the so-called jungle. You have restaurants, you have clubs. Migrants among them, they succeededly organize themselves to try to have a kind of regular life in the camp. And we have to say that it's very, very difficult to live in this camp, but also they try to manage to do something with the situation there. So, yeah.
Very quickly, were there many African migrants there?
Yeah, so mainly you have people from Syria, Afghanistan, because that's mainly the people where they're from. But you have a lot of people from Sudan and South Sudan in the camp. You have a lot of people from Ethiopia and Eritrea. And that's what you find right at the beginning of the European journey in Italy, that's exactly what you find. You have mainly people from Eritrea, Ethiopia, and South Sudan trying to cross.
We'll keep watching this developing story. Nicolas, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll definitely check with you to see what else you found out.
Thanks.
Well, that's Nicolas Pignot of The Voice of America. Now, a vessel carrying over 800 rescued migrants aboard arrived in the Sicilian port of Augusta on Monday. The migrants were assisted by volunteers from the Italian Red Cross after they disembarked the ship. The International Organization for Migration says so far in 2016, more than 335,000 people have reached Europe by sea. The International Organization for Migration also says at least 3,600 migrants have died crossing the Mediterranean this year. Now, a car bomb exploded outside a tire shop in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, on Sunday evening, killing at least 3 people and injuring 4 others. A VOA reporter says the driver, a suspected al-Shabaab suicide attacker, is among the dead. A journalist with Dalsan radio station in Mogadishu, which is located near the explosion site, said he heard a huge blast and then saw smoke and flame emerge. Doctors at the city's media hospital have confirmed that 4 injured people were admitted at their facility. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for that attack. Well, Iraqi forces shelled areas outside of Mosul as their offensive to retake the country's second largest city from Islamic State militants entered its second week. Kurdish soldiers participating in the operation are expressing optimism. Villages held by the militants continue to fall, leaving empty shelters, bombed out homes and leftover live explosives. Now, viewers, Heather Murdoch reports from Iraq.
Near the front lines of the battle with Islamic State militants, Peshmerga soldiers, the army of the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region in Iraq, seem almost elated. After more than 2 years of IS militants terrorizing the region, they are moving towards what they hope will be the final battle.
We were not afraid because we know Islamic State's tactics. We know how to get into these villages and take care of the bombs and mines they've planted.
But on the heels of recent victories, the future of the operation remains uncertain as these soldiers head away from the Mosul front to defend a city and town that were attacked Friday. Soldiers say one of the hardest things about fighting IS is the tunnels the militants use to hide in or flee. They were once stocked with food and weapons. Now they are riddled with bombs. And when villages like this one are cleared of IS, people can't go home because many homes are also booby-trapped with explosives. If and when soldiers push into Mosul, they expect to find more of the same. At this camp, people who fled IS-controlled areas say Mosul residents will flee as soon as they can when the battle begins.
The most dangerous time of all is now, as the Iraqi army attacks. It's the most dangerous time.
With refugee camps already filled to capacity, aid workers are scrambling to build more shelters, and a few near the front lines lie ready and waiting. It's not nearly enough for the 1 million people who may soon be homeless. Soldiers here tell us one of the challenges of fighting Islamic State militants is that they sometimes wear suicide belts while they fight, making it hard to get close to them and even harder to take prisoners. Reporting from the Kurdistan region of northern Iraq in the village of Hassan Sham, I'm Heather Murdoch, VOA News.
Well, officials in Malta say a small plane crashed at the island's main airport early Monday, killing all 5 people on board. A video filmed by a passenger on a nearby plane at the airport showed a fire raging from the airport's runway following the accident. Airport officials told the Reuters news agency the plane had been heading for Misrata in Libya. Eyewitnesses report the twin-prop Metroliner airplane tipped towards the right and crashed into the ground soon after liftoff, bursting into flames. Malta International Airport is temporarily closed until the debris is cleared and the accident is investigated. Airport sources initially said they believed a plane was believed to be carrying officials from European Union border agency Frontex, but the organization later said none of its staff was involved. Reuters reports the crash is the island's nation's worst peacetime air accident. Well, the U.S. presidential election is on November 8th, and Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton are feverishly targeting battleground states, highlighting the agenda that each wants to bring to Washington as America's next president. As viewers Mike Bowman reports, the nominees want to rally their core supporters while making final pitches to a shrinking pool of undecided voters.
Is there any place more fun to be than a Trump rally?
In a campaign season in which both major party candidates have vilified each other,
Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to run for the presidency.
Donald Trump is different. He is unqualified and unfit to be president and commander-in-chief.
there is an emphasis now on policy proposals, with both candidates aiming to draw sharp contrasts in the minds of voters.
If I'm elected president, we are going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
Trump is promising term limits for lawmakers and an ambitious agenda at home and abroad.
We're going to renegotiate our terrible, and I mean terrible, trade deals, end illegal immigration, stop the massive inflow of refugees, reduce surging crime, cut taxes big league, cut regulations even bigger league.
You know, we got work to do in Washington, and I know it's not easy.
Clinton is promising to be an active steward of the economy.
We're going to make the biggest investment in new jobs since World War II, jobs and infrastructure. We're also going to fight climate change with clean, renewable energy jobs.
To be sure, neither candidate is taking a break from attacking the other at campaign events or on American airwaves.
Hillary Clinton's border policy is going to allow people into the country just like the one that murdered my son.
My son was Captain Humayun Khan. He was 27 years old, and he was a Muslim American. I want to ask Mr. Trump, would my son have a place in your America?
But as November 8th nears, Trump and Clinton are spending more time speaking about their vision for the nation, hoping to give voters reasons to vote for them and not just against their opponents. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, with terrorism in the forefront of most voters' minds, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have offered different views on protecting the American homeland from the terrorist threat. Now, while both say their goal is to defeat Islamic State and stop radicalization at home, they're at odds over the approach. Here's VOA's Mila Segan.
Ask Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump about their priority in fighting terrorism, and you'll likely get a similar response.
I will defeat ISIS, and some of it is we have to up our game and be much smarter here at home.
Trump's goal is also to defeat ISIS, but he sees the terror group as part of a larger problem.
And you see, we are going to stop radical Islamic terrorism in this country. She won't even mention the words.
But she does have a name for it: radical jihadism. Clinton's plan is to take out Islamic State strongholds, coordinate with allies to defeat terror networks, work closely with the Muslim American community, and launch a so-called intelligence surge to give law enforcement the edge in disrupting terrorist plots. Trump, on the other hand, is no longer hawking his proposed ban on Muslims. Instead, he favors extreme vetting and wants tighter border controls to keep terrorists out of the country. While short on specifics, Trump says he wants to work more closely with Russia and moderate Arab nations instead of seeking to overthrow the Assad regime. We spoke with Trump supporter, retired Army General Sidney Sheknow, on Skype.
Donald Trump will show no leeway to ISIS. He will attack them wherever they are. And I think he's going to be more flexible with rules of engagement as compared to our administration.
Also on Skype, retired diplomat James Jeffrey prefers Clinton's approach.
Well, my hope is that with the attack on Mosul pending, that President Obama will deal a deadly blow to ISIS before she comes into office. But I have no doubt that she will vigorously go after ISIS's last stronghold in Raqqa.
Iraqi officials say the current operation to oust ISIS from Mosul is moving forward ahead of schedule. Whatever the outcome, most analysts say it will have a significant impact on U.S. strategy and the next commander-in-chief. I'm Milar Sega for Masood Farvar, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54. The stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now, coming up, victims of female genital cutting talk about their pain years after undergoing the procedure. Stay with us.
This is BizBeat.
The craft beer industry in Australia is growing. Small independent breweries are popping up around the country, and the Technical College of Sydney TAFE is now offering brewery training classes. Neil Cameron is an instructor.
In the same way that a plumber would go to TAFE to his night school or 1 day a week and then work in the trade and develop experience that way, that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Interest is high as students line up to get a taste of being an artisan brewer. But the problem is there aren't enough qualified people to teach them, so not every student gets in. Brewer Richard Adamson.
Finding good candidates is difficult, particularly people that have got a skill base to start with.
There are an estimated 200 microbreweries around Australia, and though it comprises only 5% of the market, craft beer has grown 20% there in the last 5 years. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Welcome back. Now, the United Nations estimates that 200 million girls and women in over 30 countries have undergone female genital mutilation. Now, Somalia has the highest rate recorded by the UN, with about 98% of the country's female population between the ages of 15 and 49 having been subjected to FGM. Now, the procedure is illegal in the United States, but some girls undergo the procedure in secret. Minnesota is home to a large number of refugees from Somalia and has a high rate of FGM. VOA's Sahara Abdi reports.
Many women who underwent the dangerous procedure of female genital mutilation as a young girls in Somalia still live with the pain. Faduma Afi, a 55-year-old mother of 7 who complains of medical problems, remembers how she was mutilated with an unsterilized instrument.
والله waxaan u maleynayaa 6 sano meelahaas ay ahayd gabdhuhuna wayba badnaayeen aad bay u badnaayeen laakiin anigu 6 sano inay ahayd baan.
We were a pair of young girls as young as 6 years old. It was so harmful to us because we did not even have anesthesia after the FGM. We were living in the areas where medication wasn't possible. We couldn't even pee.
Fartoon Wali, another victim of FGM, founded Isron, a non-profit organization that advocates against FGM and deals with the life-threatening medical conditions that result from the practice. Wally underwent the most dangerous type of FGM, known as Type 3, which includes the complete sewing shut of the vagina. She still has emotional scars and suffers from medical complications.
Well, the complication is hard. You have a problem with sexual issues. You have problems of going to see the doctor, so when they're doing the pelvic exam, it really, really hurts.
It's not from our effort, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Female genital mutilation is a traditional practice that has nothing to do with Islam, says Sheikh Hassan Jami'i, a local imam and a father of 4 daughters.
All scholars of Islam agree that pharaonic FGM is totally prohibited. And that's why I'm proud as a father, father of 4 daughters, never practiced this FGM, and it's harmful. And in Islam, there is a principle that says whatever is harmful is prohibited.
The Hennepin County Medical Center a trauma center based in Minneapolis, reports that 99% of Somali women have gone through type 3 genital mutilation. Since the medical complications of female genital mutilation are very severe, even those who undergo surgery will not regain what they have lost. Although there are now numerous campaigns and laws against the procedure in African countries, it is still widely practiced and causes untold problems and pain for women on the continent. Sahra Abdi, VOA News, Minneapolis.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, following in the footsteps of the Queen of Katwe. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Kenya, Somali pirates freed 26 Asian hostages held for nearly 5 years after the hijacking of their fishing vessel. Cameroon holds a national day of mourning after a packed train derailment that killed more than 70 people and injured scores. In Sudan, President Omar al-Bashir accuses Amnesty International of spreading lies about the Sudanese government using chemical weapons in Darfur. The Ivorian government starts a referendum campaign for the nation's new draft constitution, despite the opposition's condemnation of text as anti-democratic. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Haiti Adams-Fitzpatrick. Let's take a look at what's trending this Monday. In Jerusalem, body art is helping cover the scars of war. It's all part of an event organized by Artists for Israel. The project says tattoos can help in the healing process. Among the clients were former Israeli soldiers injured during their service. Some people wanted tattoos over their scars, others preferred different places on their body. One soldier was shot through the pelvis in 2006. He decided to be tattooed with the image of a bullet morphing into flying doves, which he says symbolizes a release. 11 tattoo artists were flown in from around the world for the event. To Mexico now for a bizarre beauty trend you don't see every day or might not want to. People visiting a fair outside Mexico City were in for quite the surprise this year. A stand offering a scorpion manicure. It entails getting a dead baby scorpion glued to one or two of your fingernails. Yes, this really happens. It's part of a new beauty craze sweeping Mexico. More than 20 women a day pay just under $3 for the unusual manicure. Scorpions are both cherished and feared in parts of northern Mexico, where stings are common and dead scorpions adorn keychains and ornamental ashtrays. I won't be rushing out for that one. The film Queen of Katwe is based on the true life story of Fiona Mutesi, a young Ugandan girl who rose from life in the slums to become a world chess champion. Now, scores of children around Uganda are trying to follow in her footsteps. They're learning to play chess. 300 chess academies have sprung up across the country in the past 14 years. Queen of Katwe has received mostly favorable reviews in Uganda and the United States. Many who appear in the film had never acted before, but they got to share the limelight with stars like Kenyan Academy Award winner Lupita Nyong'o and British-Nigerian actor David Oyelowo. And that is what is trending today. Vincent, back to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Haiti. Now, the president of the International Olympic Committee is urging Tokyo's mayor not to change the rules of the competition after city authorities announced several changes to the venue's for the 2020 Games in order to cut spiraling costs. Now, the budget had been estimated at $15 billion, 6 times the original cost. It is the latest setback for the IOC, which has seen several cities pull out of bidding to host the Games over cost concerns. Now, Henry Ridgewell reports.
It's 4 years until the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics, a bid that succeeded on its billing as a safe pair of hands. But the city's new mayor has pledged to tackle spiralling costs. The venues for basketball, taekwondo and cycling have been moved outside of Tokyo to existing facilities, and other construction projects are under review. Meeting IOC President Thomas Bach this week, Yuriko Koike said she owed it to her electorate.
In particular, the people of Tokyo, as it is their public funds that we will be spending. It is necessary that we win their understanding.
The IOC president urged the mayor not to change the rules of the competition.
We agreed that we will continue in this way of cooperation to make the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 the most sustainable and most feasible games possible.
Tokyo's fear over spiralling costs was echoed in Rome, whose mayor last month announced its withdrawal from the race to host the 2024 Games.
Con queste Olimpiadi di fatto, con le Olimpiadi.
What these Olympics require is taking on additional debt. New debt for Romans and for all Italians. That is what we are asked to take on. Sincerely, we don't feel that is right.
The IOC faces a growing problem that fewer and fewer cities are prepared to stump up the costs, says Olympic historian Philip Barker.
We've seen it with the Winter Games. For 2022, it was only Beijing and Almaty, after 2 excellent candidates, Oslo and Stockholm, who would have thought were perfectly suited to the Winter Games, pulled out because of costs.
The US city of Boston and the German city of Hamburg also withdrew their bids for the 2024 Summer Games last year. Beijing's 2008 Games and the Sochi Winter Olympics in 2014 both cost tens of billions of dollars. The IOC is now trying to change the image of the Games from one of excess to one of sustainability.
Let's make a positive virtue out of not building new facilities, out of using what they call demountable facilities, that is to say temporary builds that can then be deconstructed and sent somewhere else.
Some want the Summer Games permanently located in their original home in Greece, but that's not realistic, argues Barker.
Part of the attraction of the Olympics is that they do go from place to place. It's an international sporting event. It isn't just for one city.
But the IOC still has work to do to convince many world cities that hosting the Olympics is a boon, not a burden. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
And that's it. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords, where we teach you about words you might hear in the news.
Here is a word with 2 meanings. First, our example comes from an election story.
Supporters of Afghan presidential candidate Ashraf Ghani are dancing in the streets of Kabul. Preliminary runoff election results show him leading by 1 million votes. His supporters are elated.
A runoff is held if there is no clear winner after an election.
The second election includes only the top candidates.
Another meaning for runoff deals with the environment.
Runoff is water from rain or snow that flows down a hill or across the land.
Now, when you hear the word runoff, you will know what this news word means, and you can use it in a conversation.